That is why I'm committing to you tonight that I will put a libertarian in my cabinet and also libertarians in senior posts. Pretty good. That's pretty big.
I was sitting fifth row or so, center line for that speech at the Libertarian National Convention in May, so 6 months ago, I guess. And I took it seriously. I took it to heart. Now, you have to keep in mind, in that speech, the pitch that he was making was that he wanted the Libertarian Party to endorse him for the presidency. Legally, the Libertarian Party cannot do that. So what we did, essentially, was all of our influencers, which I guess I'm part of, ultimately ended up coming around to the decision that it was best to support him over the candidate that we ended up nominating for the LP because he was so bad. And apparently that wasn't enough. Apparently, maybe, I don't know if they knew that the ask was illegal, that we couldn't actually formally endorse him as a party. And maybe that's why they made the pitch in the first place. That's, if you want to be real conspiratorial about it, that's one angle. Or he just was booed out of the room and wasn't endorsed, and he didn't know that we weren't able to legally endorse him, and he's decided that, well, obviously you guys didn't support me, so I don't owe you a damn thing. Maybe that's it. I don't know. My personal opinion is that I didn't really vote for Donald Trump because I expected him to put a libertarian in the cabinet. I'm sure some libertarians did. If you read either my lengthy explanation on X as to why I ultimately decided to support him, or if you watch my episode where I said why this lifelong libertarian is finally going to vote for Donald Trump, I don't even think I mentioned that. If I did, that it certainly wasn't a focal point. To me, the biggest risk that we face is World War III, and that Donald Trump gives us the best opportunity of, turning the temperature down in Ukraine. And I think that is of the highest priority. Secondarily, I do believe, despite the fact that he did not receive an endorsement from the Libertarian Party officially, he will free Ross Ulbricht. That is one thing he has said repeatedly, even past the convention. He said that a few times. So I think he will follow through on that. If he does those two things, it'll be a win, as far as I'm concerned. Those are the most important things. World War III is obviously bigger than anything. So, yes, as much as I care about Ross and his mother, Lynn, it's even bigger than that. Those are my priorities. I want to show you some clips of some of the worst appointments that he has made, just so you understand why I'm not as, jumping for joy as some people are. I think most people, honestly, are a little disappointed. It's quite clear that he is delivering on some of his campaign funds that he received to to win the election. That's inevitably going to be the case, and no one's naive and thought that wouldn't happen. Certainly, Marco Rubio sucks as Secretary of State, and we've got the new head of the FDA, which was Fauci level wrong about everything, as you'll see here.
First of all, vaccines save lives, and I am so excited, and I thank and I commend Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg for taking action, because this affects everyone. This affects our children. It affects adults. I mean, just look at the recent measles outbreak, the biggest outbreak that we've had in decades with measles, and that's no joke. Measles can cause brain inflammation and pneumonia and ear infections and hearing loss and death. So it's about time that they are taking action, and I hope and pray that other social media platforms will follow suit and do the same thing.
So to be clear, I'm not criticizing her for her position on vaccines. Many doctors feel that way. That's totally fine. What I'm concerned with is that she is supporting Facebook in their censorship protocols and encouraging other social media platforms to do the same. I very much don't like that. That is against the First Amendment. That is against free speech. That is totally unacceptable. And while certainly as the head of the FDA, she won't be responsible for that stuff, that's still not good and not someone I want to get behind. So that's we're off to a rough start. We had the potential of Matt Gaetz, who is a total fire breather, who would have been unbelievable as Attorney General. He stepped down after what appears to be some sort of I don't know if it's a legitimate scandal. From my read of things, it looks as if he was probably set up, given that his father was apparently approached and they were told that he had to essentially like get $25 million and then it would go away, this scandal with his son, Matt. Matt then goes to the FBI and says that, hey, I'm being blackmailed. The guy that blackmailed him goes to jail, but apparently the accusations are the reason that he steps down. It's a very complicated and crazy story, and I don't really have a handle on it, to be honest, but it doesn't appear to be what people are being told by the corporate news. Shocker, I know. Who would have thought that they'd ever lie to you, right? But I'm going to reserve judgment on that. Regardless, setting that aside, assuming that it's not true, he would have been an unbelievable AG. He would have been fantastic at going after the FBI and all of the shenanigans that we've seen over the past 8 years. It would have been amazing to have him. So I was hoping that without him being in there, maybe we get a Vivek, maybe we get a, I don't know, Kash Patel or something like that, if he's not the head of the FBI. No, it's going to be Pam Bondi. And I wasn't very familiar with her, so I immediately look her up and I find this video that I post within about an hour of her being announced, and it goes kind of viral, and it's her talking to Donald Trump right after the Parkland shooting in Florida, my back of my woods here. And yeah, she's talking about red flag laws and how they are pushing them.
Called the Baker Act, but it's our Civil Commitment Act, and it's weak, and it's about 1,000 pages long, and I've had my Solicitor General on it for 3 days now, working on it. We're rewriting it along with Governor Scott, who's good. You're going to meet with him. He's going to give you a ton of good information. We've been rewriting it, and we are going to bring in something called the Gun Violence Restraining Order. So if someone is civilly committed, typically you can hold them for up to 72 hours, but people are getting out within 24 hours, the majority of them. So what we want to do is let law enforcement come in and take the guns.
Good.
They're a danger to themselves.
Which you can't
or
do
others.
right now.
Well, because without being adjudicated. So because they're a danger to themselves.
You want them to take the guns and
when they are
not go through 6 months of legal trials and everything.
Exactly. But we also have to give the mentally ill the due process in which they deserve, President. So what we're doing is they're going to be able to take the guns when they're taken into custody or into the hospital, and then when they're released within 24 hours or 72 hours later, typically it's 24 hours, but law enforcement will have 72 hours to determine whether they should give those guns back, or they can go to a judge and say, Your Honor, please keep these guns. We feel this person is still a danger to himself or others.
And she then says this about speech, which really made me not like her as AG. So off to a rough start.
Really the most troubling to me, these students in universities in our country, whether they're here as Americans or if they're here on student visas, and they're out there saying, I support Hamas. You and I have seen that on all of these television shows. Frankly, they need to be taken out of our country, or the FBI needs to be interviewing them right away when they're saying, I support Hamas, I am Hamas. That's not saying I support all these poor Palestinians who are trapped in Gaza. That's not what they're saying. So I think their student visas need to be revoked. I think we need to reinstate President Trump's travel ban immediately. There's a lot of things that can be done to stop this. But yeah, the anti-Semitism is rampant throughout this country now, and it's truly, truly heartbreaking to see what's happening to all of our Jewish friends in this country.
Now, look, if there's a foreigner here that is endorsing terrorism in our country, yeah, they probably ought to be deported. I think that's fair. But if you're an American and you're voicing support for what you perceive to be resistance fighters that are 6,000 miles away, I don't really think that you should be interviewed by the FBI unless you're actually talking about, I don't know, committing terrorism or planning that. I mean, don't you have to commit a crime in order to be guilty of something? No, just because you're holding up a sign as a college student, the new Attorney General of America wants to have the FBI question you and deport you and tear up your visas. Look, that's a bit too far for me, but I'm not at all surprised, given that she was the Attorney General of Florida, that that's her perspective. So, yeah, not very fond of that. We're going to get one more negative before I bring my buddy Anomaly in here so we can break this all down, and that is Seb Gorka, who will apparently be the head of counterterrorism. I'm not super familiar with Sebastian Gorka, but I found this clip of him, and I was like, yikes.
I'll give one tip away that the president has mentioned. He will say to that murderous former KGB colonel, that thug who runs the Russian Federation, you will negotiate now, or the aid that we have given to Ukraine thus far will look like peanuts. That's how he will force those gentlemen to come to an arrangement that stops the bloodshed.
So yeah, you got to escalate to de-escalate. Basically, the exact same protocols that Russia's operating under. That's not how you find peace. If both sides have a policy of escalating to de-escalate, well, then you just get fucking escalation. Do I have to spell that out for you? So yeah, not very fond of Mr. Gorka. Very concerned about the neoconservative. The foreign policy appointments have not been ideal, to put it mildly. But let's be honest. The first go-around was far from ideal. You had Mike Pompeo and John Bolton. And last I checked, Trump didn't start any new wars, so let's hope that he won't in the second go-around, because if he does, it will almost certainly amount to a world war. We cannot allow that to happen, and I will continue to apply as much pressure as I possibly can to prevent that if I possibly can. That's all I can do. I still think, on the whole, his cabinet is much better than it was in 2016, and as Anomaly and I will break down for you, I'll tell you exactly why I still think that there's reason for hope and optimism. However, yes, there are a lot of blemishes on this cabinet, and we'll see if Kash Patel gets in as the FBI, if Dr. Jay Bhattacharya gets in as the head of CDC, which would be amazing. There's a few things. Brandon Herrera for ATF. There's a bunch of things that he could still deliver on that would, in my opinion, would essentially make good on the promise to libertarians. If you think that there really was a promise made there, I don't know. It's arguable. But we'll see. We'll see. It's not like his cabinet is filled, but there's still a bunch of other roles that he is responsible for filling that I think will be interesting to see what he delivers on. And just with the RFK Jr., Tulsi, and a handful of others that are pretty good, I think it's better than 2016. Like, I can say that definitively. Whether or not it amounts to a better presidency and we don't have a repeat of 2020, TBD. We'll see. But anyways, we got Anomaly in here. Enjoy the rest of the show. Today, I want to tell you about our sponsor, Monetary Metals. Gold prices have been breaking all-time highs in 2024, and now you can get your gold to work for you, generating interest income every month, paid in additional ounces of physical gold. You can earn up to 5% on your gold and silver in their lease offerings, and accredited investors can earn double-digit returns on their bond offerings. Again, all the interest is paid in ounces, which are stored for free on your behalf. So, if you're tired of your gold and silver collecting dust at home, or worse, racking up fees having your metal professionally stored, check out monetary-metals.com/lockdown to learn how you can start putting your metal to work today. Again, that's monetary-metals.com/lockdown.
Ain't doing it, but nice to see you, brother. It's been a while.
You too, man. So yeah, I was just opening up the show with a little conversation about, this isn't your issue. This is more my issue because I'm, more involved with the Libertarian Party, and Trump came there. It was mid-May. Night prior, I had debated Vivek Ramaswamy. It was one of the coolest 24 hours of my life. I've never been in the company of a president either, past or current or future. So it was it was a very neat event. In that clip that I played before you got in here, he said that he would be putting a libertarian in his cabinet as well as high up in his staff, whatever that means. And he made it sound as if there would be multiple. There's a lot of disappointed libertarians out there right now. I know there's a lot of disappointed MAGA heads out there right now when it comes to some of his cabinet appointments. So I thought I'd have you on for a bit and we could just chat. You're more of an old head in this game. I think you voted for him the past 3 times in a row, if I'm not mistaken. You're used to the disappointment. So how you feeling?
2016, I voted third party, actually, but I voted Republican since 2018. And I don't want to get into it, too, because I don't think it deserves too much spotlight. But I'm getting some flack, just like you are, just from like a different community of people that used to like Trump, that don't like him now, that were mad that I voted. So it seems like there's a lot of division and a lot of chaos. But yeah, I guess we can get into it. You want to start with like libertarians in the cabinet or the cabinet in general?
No, just the cabinet in general. I mean, from your vantage point, I'm sure you would have loved to see Massey as Secretary of Agriculture, even though he wouldn't have really been the libertarian because he's a Republican. But I think, honestly, this is going to upset my audience, as you were saying just a second ago. to paint this with any positivity is going to be shunned, and people are going to say, "Oh, cope," and you're trying to justify your decision to vote for him. But I'm just going to be honest. A lot of his picks are still pretty good. Like there are probably 5 or 6 picks that I like either a lot or a good amount. So let's start with the positives, because it's so popular to go down the negatives. So what are you thinking?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I was like, let's start with the positives and make the negative Nancy's mad. First off, I want to say real quick, I don't want to take too much time, but I'm realistic. Like same with like libertarians or RFK. It's like, if you can't be the president, you can campaign like you're going to be the president, but it literally doesn't matter, because all these things you're saying you're going to do, like it's not happening if you're getting like 3% of the vote. So with Trump, like I wasn't expecting 100% a good cabinet. I was like, I'd be happy with like a 30% good cabinet. And one of my main hopes was RFK to be high up and not some like lower level position like he gave Dr. Oz. I'm not saying Dr. Oz is doing nothing, but if say RFK was the head of Medicare and Medicaid and Dr. Oz ran the HHS, I would be like 100 times more pissed off right now. Facts. So the fact that Trump put him at the head of the HHS, he's technically above all these other people. Like the Surgeon General, I think, has like 1/100th of the power of HHS. They don't control the budget. They're not a senior level position over everyone the same way HHS is. I mean,
RFK is in charge of the FDA, the CDC, he's HHS, obviously. A lot of agencies that really wrecked our lives in 2020. I don't know how people don't look at that and go like, all right, that gives us some chance for, positivity.
That could be the biggest win of all. And I think because it's different than politics. I notice people, and I'm not trying to use this as like a negative turn, as a smear, but I'm trying to like compartmentalize different groups, like the far right. And I'm not saying it as like nothing you ever say is right and you're terrible, but they seem to like not care about RFK because they're so into like immigration and Israel, where like for some reason like that goes over their head, or like who cares about health, or I don't know what it is, where like the gym bros are really pumped about RFK and like moms whose kids have been injured, etc. So, but I'm pumped off that because I understand the game he's been playing for 20 years when it comes to pesticides, pharmaceuticals, and these really, like I would say to people, if you're going to watch any speech of RFK, listen to his Trump endorsement speech. And I chopped up 17 minutes where he talks about this stuff. There's no running around. There's no like political talk. It's just 17 minutes of literally what's going on and how we've been getting screwed over by Big Pharma. So yeah, him at HHS, I think that has to be the top pick that I'm super pumped about. And, I'd never, to be honest, I didn't think Trump would put him at HHS. I didn't even know if Trump would be allowed to put him at HHS. So the fact that he did that, that's a big balls, big boy move. So I'm pretty pumped off that for sure.
Yeah. And what it tells me is that Trump really is a quid pro quo kind of guy. I don't think he wins without RFK Jr. I think he knows that. I think that his decision to drop out and to send countless millions of votes his way, I think that made the difference, and he owed him, and he knew that like that's what RFK was about. That's what his voters wanted, and he delivered on it. To again, not to justify him not delivering on the libertarian promise, but just to explain it, the libertarians did not endorse him. We ran our own candidate. Our candidate did dog shit, 0.4% of the vote, but it just like I think that he didn't feel as if we delivered, and therefore he wasn't going to deliver. And as a business person, I kind of respect that. Like, I get that. But I think just from a tactical angle, it was a mistake. I don't want to go down the negative already because we're trying to stay positive, but I think tactically it's a mistake because you ought to be fusing the libertarian and the America First MAGA movement into a unified force to oust all of the pressures that you deal with that is requiring some of these negative cabinet picks a la Marco Rubio. Which, now let me go down a few of the other positives. I think that if you're a border hawk, this Holman dude is a fucking machine. Like, he's going to get the job done. I think that he's probably a good pick for that role. He
might even deport me, bro. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, you're looking a little tan. You got to go.
I was like, bro, I got a DNA test. I'm like, come on, bro. Let's talk about this, man. I'm a podcaster. No,
I mean, I think that the other things aside from RFK that I was most excited about, Tulsi Gabbard, I'm still a little skeptical on because she's not as anti-war as I am. However, I think that given the abuse that she suffered at the hands of Hillary Clinton and the smear machine, the fact that she was put on the clear skies or quiet skies list and essentially treated like a domestic terrorist, I very much like her being the head of DNI. The two things that I was most pumped about, which look like they may or may not happen, clearly Gates as the as the AG. I thought that would have been amazing. That's not happening. And then Kash Patel as the head of the FBI, and that's still in flux. So those were the thing, like the best positives from my vantage point. Any disagreements there?
Yeah, I mean, Gates getting replaced is a huge L. I think the Fox News heads think it's awesome because Pam Bondi's in Florida, but I mean, we can't have a congressman who doesn't take AIPAC money, and now they've replaced him, who stood up against the anti-Semitism speech laws, with a woman who will probably play ball on that department. With the Trump stuff too, and this is just how he operates, and you can see with the RFK, he's not an ideologue. Like, you have ideas, like you're somewhat of an ideologue. I would say you're definitely very logical and rational and willing to like compromise in some ways, but in like strategic ways. But you also, I think, are ideological. Trump is ideological on like Diet Coke, tariffs. Like, there's a few things, border buildings. Like, he knows a lot. Right. Golf. He's a genius in certain categories, but he doesn't care about health. So with RFK, that showed me that he's willing to do compromises against the establishment, but I'm not going to say for the wrong reasons, but it's like, I don't think Trump really gives a crap. I think it's just RFK did a lot for him, and he's like, sure, I'll give you that big position. So exactly. For the people that are libertarian, it's like, look at how he's operating. To positive on the bad picks as well. I think this is a different ball game than it was in 2016. People were just figuring stuff out. There was so much drama against Trump. I think a lot more people are smart. There's a lot more social media kind of pressure to, go against the narrative. So that's what I would say about all the bad picks is like, just stay on it, but don't be, be hardline in your beliefs, but don't lash out at everybody. Like, libertarians, don't get mad at other libertarians because of how they voted. People getting mad at me that I agree with me because I voted. It's like, what's the point of that when we're all going to come together and go after it? Because if Kamala was in, it's not like we're getting any W's. Basically, we're just getting complete smoke and mirrors, where I think this administration is going to be the most transparent and the most accessible administration ever, just by default, because they have so many pieces that I feel like we can actually influence.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, this is why I ultimately decided to vote for the guy. It was 100% absolutely existential bad, or probably 30 or 40% good. Like, that was how I was looking at it, which obviously means on the inverse that it's probably going to be 50 to 60 to 70% bad. Like, that's really where we're at with it. And I'm still not giving up hope that it could be 50-50 good bad. I think that's a real possibility, and I really like Donald Trump Jr. I think he is really trying hard to drag his father into more of an America first, more of a libertarian angle. I think Vivek Ramaswamy is doing the same thing. And I like JD Vance a decent amount. I have some disagreements with him when it comes to foreign policy, not as many as most of the old guard GOP, but overall, like, I feel like they're coming closer to my camp, and I think there's reason for optimism. But your point about telling the libertarians not to get mad at one another, good fucking luck, dude. Like, that's what we do professionally.
I got like truthers mad at me this week, like people that have been fans forever, they like lashed out because I said why I'm voting for Donald Trump. And I was like, guys, I voted for him in 2020. Like, and you've been a fan of mine for 3 years. So like, I don't know, like, did you not see that part too? I don't know why that's the hardline stance. Cause also my vote, like, I don't take it that seriously. Like, I live in California. Like, it literally doesn't matter. Yeah. Locally I vote. Unless you want to pay my taxes, you don't get to vote for me. But, on the hand of like the bad parts in his administration, this is also not giving people in the GOP a pass, because I think there are a lot of sellouts, but you got to understand the game that's being played. And I feel like on Twitter, a lot of people understand it. When I go on my Facebook page, and I love my Facebook audience, but they're way more like, I watch Greg Gutfeld, I watch like Mark Levin report, and they're still on like and I don't know what those people are saying, so no offense to them, but it's like they're like, Trey Gowdy would be a good replacement. I'm like, who's telling you these things? So they got to figure out the game that's being played, because, without being accused of being hateful or whatever they're going to do, like they always do, like Trump took $100 million from a donor, and he's going to have to do something in return of that. And also, it's not just the foreign lobby, that Matt Gaetz was not taking money from, but it's also, or they'll say it's a domestic lobby that just, brings the countries together, whatever they say. It's also like the media, and it's basically like you're going to get Matt Gaetz or Candace Owens if you go down that path. So everybody's like afraid, even if it's not directly like donor money, they seem to be so afraid for whatever reason, or there's a multitude of reasons. So it's kind of up to us, not to make excuses for them, but I do have on my wall, it's the quote, "The man in the arena." And it's like, there's like, I talk for a living, but at the same time, I try to have grace with it because there's some things that I really have done and I put myself out there. And there's other things I haven't. And I'd be more like a Ron Paul and a Thomas Massey. So I'm not making excuses for these idiots and sellouts. But once enough people realize the game that's being played in politics, then it's not cool for the Republicans to do it anymore. So to me, that's the big takeaway from this is like, we can't have people like libertarians getting mad at each other, truthers getting mad at each other over nothing. And then we got Trump supporters like trusting the plan or listening to Trey Gowdy. Like, we got to cut all that and focus, because once we as a collective make it cool to do what we pretty much all want to do, then they can't keep doing it. But as long as nobody knows that it's happening, or it's like a fringe issue, it's just going to be like, oh, he got tricked, or he had to hire Marco Rubio. He took $100 million from a donor. And, I think that's one of the picks they wanted, in my opinion.
Oh, no. I mean, I tweeted that out, I think a week ago. I said, Miriam Adelson gave him $100 million. You think she wasn't buying something with that? Like, right. Obviously she was. Obviously that's her priority. And obviously Trump was going to deliver. And for the record, had the Libertarians delivered $100 million for his reelection campaign, we would have got a fuck of a lot too. But we didn't do that, and we fought him every step of the way, tooth and nail. So our expectations have to be tempered a bit. I do still think that the promises he made post-convention, after he was booed and basically laughed out of the auditorium, I think he will deliver on. I think he will free Ross Ulbricht. I do think that he is interested in negotiating peace in Ukraine. If he does that, along with, I didn't even mention Doge yet, but Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon, that has true potential. Whether or not it'll have teeth is kind of TBD at this point. But I love the idea. I think that overall, it's probably a B-. Like, just being honest, like if it ends up that he doesn't free Ross and he starts World War III, well, it's an F. And I got fucking duped, and I should have never voted for the guy. But that's kind of how I'm viewing it.
Yeah, like World War III or like another pandemic where Trump's like ushering it in, yeah. I will officially apologize. But anything other than that, it's like with Kamala, I always try to tell my audience, it's like calling a customer service that doesn't exist. No one there cares. They don't share your ideas. They're not even pretending to. Whether you're libertarian, truth, or conservative, whatever, even a liberal like a Tulsi Gabbard or an RFK Jr., who he's not even really that conservative. He just wants to do what he wants to do with the health stuff. It's all coming through the right wing. So to me, it's like a double strategic where it's like, vote for these people because I think they make better choices on average. They're the adults in the room. They're going to close the border. They seem like they have a plan in Ukraine. Trump actually has ideas. Kamala, everything's fake. At least with Trump, when he talks for 3 hours, it's like he has ideas about tariffs. You can debate them or agree with them or disagree. Kamala, there's nothing to agree or disagree with. There's nothing's real. Everything is literally just like an act. So to me, it's like this is the best of the two options. And I think, I don't know. I guess I'm not an all or nothing person, and I'm super strategic. So I'm not nothing. I would say I had such low expectations for Trump's cabinet that I think I'm so happily surprised that RFK Jr.'s at HHS. I'm really bummed out that Matt Gaetz is not Attorney General. That's like huge blow. And as far as Tulsi, I mean, I'm sure you know this or know to some extent, but in 2017, she flew to Syria when they were doing a war with Syria. And then she went on CNN and they were trying to be like, who the hell do you think you are flying to Syria? And she goes, all the people told me there that the U.S. government's funding terrorist organizations. And they're like, we deny doing that. And she's like, yeah, Jake. And, she's so nice and sweet. She's like, but the reality is, like, I'm talking to them people there, and that's, they're pretty much doing that. So they've hated her for that reason. And even though, like you said, I watched some interviews and I feel like I'm watching like Sean Hannity now, like Tulsi Gabbard's like a right-wing Fox mom sometimes. But also on Ukraine, I think she kind of sides with me, Tucker Carlson, you, Trump, about what to do there. So I like that pick as well. I mean, we'll see what's going to happen because they're definitely going to try to pull some stuff. But I want people to not fight over petty, stupid stuff or make these personal attacks. Like if you're going to burn a bridge with somebody who does news, make sure it's because you really think they're 100% controlled opposition and they're for sure like going to screw you over. Don't do it over petty stuff because we're all going to be saying the same thing. And don't do like the I told you so. It's like, bro, what do you think you were getting with Kamala Harris? Like, you want to talk about the Middle East? Tens of thousands of women and kids are dying under them. Like with Trump.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, this is what drives me. This is what drives me crazy. It's like we've got, I think, 1 million people dead in Ukraine between, if you combine the Russians and Ukrainian forces. It's like just if that ends alone, that's it. That is enough for, from my vantage point, for my vote. Like if I can end that suffering, that is worth doing. Now, it doesn't guarantee it's going to happen, and I'm not going to take credit for it if it does. But I just think it's so bizarre for people to go like, well, it's the same thing. It's the duopoly, Clint. You have no say. Nothing changes. And it's like, bullshit, nothing changes. Like Trump tried and got very close to ending the war in Afghanistan. He basically was responsible for ending it. It was only delayed because of fuckery behind the scenes. I think that Trump's instincts are to end the war in Ukraine. I think he wants to be on speaking terms with Vladimir Putin, with Xi. That's good. That's what we need. That is actually how you avoid nukes from flying. And I can't believe that it's such a hard pitch for me to convince people that, like, hey, this is why. Like, I'm not telling you have to go vote for Trump, but like, can you just understand that I'm genuinely concerned about World War III? Like, this is not performative. I think we are very, very close to it, and that's the primary driving force behind my decision. What was the primary driving force? Was it just how bad Kamala Harris was, or was there any like particular issue?
Definitely RFK, the fact that I thought Trump was going to ramp down the war in Ukraine. I mean, I personally think this conspiracy theory is okay, or whatever they call it. But like, I think that's what they really hate about Trump. Because in many ways, like, Trump is establishment, but in some ways he's not. So like, what are they mad at him for? I think it's Ukraine. I think that's really where he's a threat. And I think,
dude, they impeached him over it.
Right. And then and everything was aimed at him from the beginning to stop him from doing anything with them, because they wanted to start that war. So they called Bernie supporters Russian bots. Then they called Trump grandmas Russian bots. Then it was Russian impeachment. Then it was Ukraine impeachment, Russia collusion. It was all to stop him from trying to stop the war, in my view. And this is where we're similar. And this is the number one backlash I've been getting too. I'm not an idiot. So when people get mad at me, like they usually it's like people that watched me for years, didn't know anything 3 years ago, and now all of a sudden they hate me. But it's like, whatever. It's like, I know where the parties are together. I know about the speech laws. I know about the foreign policy. I know about the country that you're not allowed to talk. Like, I know all these things. But then are we really going to sit there and say everything's exactly the same? I live in an area where a woman got killed a couple months ago, and the killer was let out by that, prosecutor in Los Angeles who luckily lost his race, Gascon. And the guy had like 5 or 6 prior convictions. It's shocking how much of the really bad crimes are done by people who do like nonstop crimes who should have been in jail 7 crimes ago.
Laken Riley's killer was actually flown in on taxpayer money into New York, and then he traveled into her town and ended up taking her life. I mean, that's crazy. We're paying for these people to come in. It's
Majorca's working with nonprofits to just like funnel people in the country. So it's like, okay, I can name all the things. So can you. Like, me and Clint are very aware of these things. So, we're pretty good at the analysis. We can name the 20 ways that the parties are the same. We could talk about the donors. We could talk about where Trump screwed up, where he's still screwing up. I'm fine with that. But then an honest person, like, you don't get to call yourself a truther or libertarian if you're not being realistic. Like, you're just kind of a liar, or you're emotionally letting it take over you. If you want to take that stance, it's fine, but it's like, okay, prosecutors will change, federal judges will change. Even though I don't like Trump's Supreme Court judge picks that much, they're better than Ketanji Jackson Brown. If they were all Ketanji Jackson Brown, we'd probably lose the First Amendment, like, for real, because these little speech laws they're passing, they're not really doing much now. They're plans to do something later, but it's like, I can name 40 things that are going to change. Local prosecutors, the border, possibly the war in Ukraine. RFK at HHS, that's a massive shift. Like, even with the shitty choices for FDA, the CDC guy's good. The other guy, I think the FDA guy's okay. I'm like on the fence about him. And then the Surgeon General sucks. They all sucked before. You know what I'm saying? It's a massive improvement anyway. So I think, like, I just don't understand people who think it's like all literally the same. Here's my thought about that, and everyone's entitled to their vote or non-vote. I don't care. If everybody, like, they're like, if you don't vote, we're going to break the system. Bro, the only people that believe that are truthers, conservatives, libertarians, anarchists, and people on our side. If you got everybody that knows in our groups to not vote, Democrats would win every election. So exactly. The system literally wouldn't break just because they're like, what if only 10% of people voted? It wouldn't. The elites would put themselves. You think they're going to be like, oh, you didn't vote, show's over, guys. You get to be president. They just go right back into office. So it's like, this isn't. In fact, if there was only 10% of people voting, they would say, look, 95% of the vote was for the Democrat. We have a mandate. That's how they would actually frame it. I mean, For sure. So it's like I don't understand why people are getting so hung up on that, but I'm trying to move past it because it's like the people in those camps that are probably bothering you too. They want to just talk about this for like 10 years straight, where it's like, bro, it's such an uninteresting conversation.
I know.
It's like, I find it so uninteresting and unintelligent, but I get it. But it's like, well, we got to move on. And
I think that's what drives me crazy, though, bro. Is that of course I get it. I'm a libertarian. I've read all of the literature that explains like, oh, you don't have my consent. Spooner and no trees and all this stuff. Like, I understand, but it doesn't change reality. Like, the reality is that the vast majority of people, or at least not even vast majority, 40 or 50 or 60% of people are going to cast a vote. That's all that fucking is going to actually be tabulated at the end of the day, assuming that the voting system is legitimate. And you're going to get ran over. Like, that's how the actual reality of our paradigm plays out. You can ignore it, and fine. And if you want to become an agorist and you want to create, entrepreneurial wealth and create a little commune and defend okay, right. Like, good luck. But at the same time, you can do all of that and still cast a vote for Trump just because you think that it might prevent World War III. Because that's kind of my worldview is like, I don't think Trump's the solution to all this. I just think he's maybe stopping the bleed. Maybe, right. Like, just for a little bit.
The people who didn't vote, like, I don't think you or me have bothered them at all. Like, that's your choice. You get to vote or not vote. Yeah. Like, so why are they so hell-bent on bothering everyone else? I feel like it's just this whole thing where they're like, I told you so. And it's like,
yes, that's what it is.
People were bringing up tweets of mine like this, and they were like, look what you said about Zionism in 2022. I was like, I voted for Republicans in 2022 and 2020. Like, and I just said the same thing yesterday on my podcast. Like, you're not like, it's not like I'm not talking about that. I understand the dynamic. The issue is if the Democratic Party had anything to offer, like literally anything, I might actually think about it. But it's like, let's just say the one thing, like people were talking about Trump is super Zionist. The other cabinet pretends like they want a two-state solution while tens of thousands of people are getting slaughtered. So it's like they're objectively doing a worse job there. Time will tell if Trump does a better job, but something tells me even though he's in the bag in a lot of these topics, I really don't think he wants the killing. And I think that people respect Trump because there's something there to actually have to like respect. So I can't think of a single topic Democrats are bad on. And it's like, I'll deal with controlled opposition Republicans and I feel like there's a lot of movement in this community where like even the fact that we got RFK, this doesn't excuse what Trump did in 2020. It was egregious. However, to go from a pharmaceutical lobbyist to the guy that's been suing the pharmaceutical industry, like that's a pretty huge U-turn. Like no other politician ever says like, okay, let me go the other way. Like this is, it's exciting for me. But I'm not expecting anything. So we don't need people for the next 5 years to be like, I told you so, Clint, it's your fault. Oh yeah. It was Clint's vote, right? Yeah. That did it in. It's like,
it was the one deciding vote. But I think people also are sleeping on what a potential just 180 shift it would be if he goes with Kash Patel. Like just hear me out for a second. I did a panel with this guy. It was me, Brett Weinstein, Angela McArdle, and Kash Patel Freedom Fest in Las Vegas. I don't know, 4 months ago, whatever it was, and I think the name of the talk was how to defeat the deep state. And I could have been sitting up there, me, a vice presidential candidate for the Libertarian Party, Brett Weinstein, some genius, bio whatever guy, and then fucking Kash Patel, who's up there like as a like real insider who's laying out all of the game plan on how you have to go after, basically the spying nonsense that they did to Trump, the entire Russia collusion narrative, the burying of Hunter Biden's laptop, Whitmer kidnapping case, the J6 case. I mean, this guy is a fucking just like, he's just a big old arrow right on the problem. If he actually gets put in as the head of the FBI, I don't think people have any idea how big of a deal that would be. I'm not saying it's going to happen because it probably won't, but man, if it does, it would be incredible.
Well, here's a good sign. I mean, Dan Scavino, who is probably one of Trump's closest people that actually knows what he's talking about. There's a lot of people that like talk to Trump like once every 4 years that pretend like they have intel.
Right.
That guy, Dan Scavino, he knows what he's talking about. He's been by Trump's side literally like the whole time. And he's one of the only people that hasn't been like fired. You're fired, not that guy. He says it's not Mike Rogers. He tweeted that. He said, that's a rumor. It's not true, which that seemed to be what all the news was reporting. So, yeah, if he puts cash there, like if he could put cash there, I'm not as upset as everyone else. Like even say like Marco Rubio. I know it's garbage. It's not an upgrade from Pompeo. But here's the thing. Trump actually, and I'm not getting into the trust the plan stuff because I'm not asking you to trust the plan, but like Trump is a man with a plan. Like he's not one of these leaders like Kamala. She just stands there and smarter people tell her what to do. Trump knows what he wants to do in Russia and he knows what he wants to do in Israel. These are the things that Trump actually likes to do. So, I think Rubio can go and talk to people and whatever, but I don't think, I don't think that he's going to get to really call the shots to some extent.
This is why I didn't flip out as much as many of my compatriots did when it came to the Marco Rubio pick, is because it's like, all right, yeah, it was fucking Pompeo and John Bolton last time. He still didn't start any new wars. He did blow up Soleimani in Iran. He did drop a lot of bombs. I think Trump will probably do the same type of stuff again. I think he does not want a wider war, but I think he very much likes to flex. He's very much a peace through strength type of cat, and he's going to flex a couple times. Like that's just an inevitability. But let's be honest, a female president would have been in a position of like, I have to prove that I am not a walkover, and probably would have launched a wider war. People forget this, but Kamala Harris was actually responsible. As you said, she's not actually making any of these decisions. She has no fucking clue what she's doing. But Kamala Harris went out to Ukraine a few months before Russia invaded and said the door remains open for Ukraine to join NATO. She didn't know what she was doing because she's an imbecile, but she was being used as a conduit to try and provoke Russia into doing what they did, as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
So, if you think that that's a step in the right direction or an improvement over Trump and Rubio, I think you're delusional.
And with Syria, too, when this is a tangible thing that Trump actually did, and people could look it up, he stopped a $1 billion CIA program in Syria. Like he just cut the funding completely. And then all of a sudden, mysteriously, ISIS, disappeared into like one region. And like Syrians, it's not that they trust Trump, but they like him better because they've seen the results, and the same with, I've met a lot of people, like I talk to people when I'm traveling and just people will talk to me in general. A lot of Muslims and a lot of Middle Easterners, they like Trump more because it's not that like they fully trust him or they don't see that he's, a Zionist or whatever. It's just with Kamala, like you're getting this vibe. Like when you watch Fox News, they'll be like, she's a Palestinian. Chuck Schumer's a Palestinian. If he's a Palestinian, why is he pushing anti-Semitism laws and writing a book on anti-Semitism? He's not Palestinian. But anyway, it's like they push this stupid controlled opposition narrative on Fox News. But the reality is that Kamala is not only pro-Israel, she's just so bad at deal making and negotiations that she's getting more people killed than Trump. You could say that Trump is better for Israel and he's more of a Zionist, but the thing is he cut $1 billion funding program in Syria and ramped down that war. So we'll see. Like Kamala's gotten 50,000 people murdered. Like you said, if you add up Ukraine too, maybe upwards of 1 million. Yep. I really don't think Trump's going to do a worse job. I think he's even going to do a better job in Israel and Palestine. He's probably going to try to give them part of the land and it's going to piss off Palestinians. But like you ask a Palestinian, like what was the worst time period, 2022 to 2024 or before that? This has probably been the worst time in modern history. It's one of the worst things that I've ever seen in literally this entire century. So, it's like I'm not asking.
It's the worst since 48 for them, for sure. I mean,
I'm not asking for an all pass, but it's like I'm looking for improvement, and I do think that Trump will negotiate. And I'll even say this when it comes to the Israel stuff and Trump taking money. This is not excusing it, but like look at that he put RFK at the head of HHS. He's always just making deals. Like, I don't even think he's that idealistic. Like,
health insurance is a nightmare. It's frustrating. It's confusing. It's expensive. And claim denials are becoming more and more common. In fact, 1 in 5 Obamacare claims were denied last year, and that is just simply unacceptable. The headache of health insurance is exactly why Crowd Health was created. It's not health insurance. It's a better way to pay for health care through crowdfunding. So stop sending money to big insurance companies who profit off of not paying your bills and check out Crowd Health. Health insurance processes are really, really confusing these days, and I know people are frustrated. If you need an option that is outside of the current health insurance paradigm, I highly recommend you check this company out. For $175 for an individual or $575 for a family of 4 or more, you'll get access to a community of people who are willing to help out in the event of an emergency. You'll get access to telemedicine visits, discounted prescriptions, and so much more without doctors' networks getting in the way. And of course, you'll join the crowd, a group of members just like you who want to help pay for each other's unexpected medical events. Let Crowd Health help with your healthcare needs. Get started today for just $99 per month for your first 3 months by using code LOCKDOWN at joincrowdhealth.com. Crowd Health is not insurance. Learn more at joincrowdhealth.com. That's joincrowdhealth.com, code LOCKDOWN.
You know, if he does anything, it'll be because like Netanyahu didn't pour him a Diet Coke. And then he'll be like, you know what? I like he operates in such a funny manner where it's like it's all about what you do to him. So it's like he doesn't have this massive loyalty. I think he's still a little upset because Netanyahu like congratulated Biden before the election was like over in his opinion. And like, I'm not saying he's mad at it, but I think Trump does actually like America more than Kamala and has more loyalty. But we all know that there's a little bit of an issue when like every senator and every House member on Twitter every day is just like, we stand with this country forever and always. And it's like, relax, bro. So I see the issue, but yeah, I just like Trump better than Kamala in almost every way. I can't even think of 3 things that I like better about Kamala or her leadership. Like I just can't.
And we haven't even mentioned the censorship regime that was rolled out under her tenure, and she campaigned on making it worse, like on censoring more aggressively. And this is what the entire, current regime was all about, was that like, basically, I still believe this is true. Had Trump lost this election, they would have made it basically impossible for them to ever lose again, or they would have made it so that whoever becomes the GOP nominee would have been just a total carbon copy, Mitt Romney type of character forevermore. And they would have censored and obliterated any sort of, genuine populist challenger to the throne. And for that reason, I'm still glad that Donald Trump won. I am. Right. And I think that it is better. I think it gives us a chance at actually speaking out, which we were like, people forget, but you were on the internet as aggressively as I was in that period. 21 and 22 was fucking crazy. I mean, we couldn't say anything practically. So I think it's very important that we got this win, and whether or not it ends up being some technocratic panopticon because Elon Musk and Vivek and Donald Trump end up putting us into this, technological cell. Okay, maybe that happens. I don't know. But the trajectory we were on was pretty bad anyways.
Yeah, I want to say like the trends, everything, like all this stuff that I've been working for, I feel like we're making gains in everything. And even like the youth going like 10 or 11% conservative outside of Trump, like that was a demographic shift that I wasn't sure was even possible. So there's so many good things happening. And I think sometimes people, they become at odds with me because I'm trying to be so honest that I can seem like I'm a hater sometimes, because I'm not waverable when I believe something to be true. Like I don't care what it costs. So they like me. But then I'm also like a really optimistic, positive person. And like outside of politics, like I'm a happy person. I try to like enjoy life and see the best in it. So it's like there's so many things that are good about what's going on. And like you said, that option that everyone's freaking out about, I like Greg Reese. He does great reporting for InfoWars, but and I don't know what he thinks of me, but I think he does great work, and I've always liked his little shorts that he does for Alex. But he commented on my thing and was like, the technocratic like spy state that they're going to do with X or whatever he said. And I'm like, here's my thought about that. I got my eyes peeled for it because it's always possible, especially after what they did during COVID. But like they don't need to do anything right now, in my opinion, to do that. Like they already have everyone's everything. Like they have it on Apple. Like Apple has it. You think they need to go through Elon Musk and X to get us to use it? There's not even going to be as many people on X as already gave their information to Facebook. Like Facebook already has the whole world's information, more than X will probably ever get. If
billions of people's IDs,
so I don't
addresses,
understand.
everything.
Yeah, like I don't understand it where it's like you think they're going to do all this stuff through X. Like they could, but also it's like, let's just say that they could do it in 20 different ways now if they wanted to. So it's going to be a compliance game, kind of like, COVID was. When that time comes, like who resists and who doesn't. So I'm like, I'm not naive about it, but I feel like people are sometimes always like fearing the worst, where like I could say that's definitely a possibility. Like it could happen. I'll be lookout for it, but I'm not going to spend my hours like fearing it. Where the people that do the opposite, they'll be like, that's 100% for sure going to happen. And if anyone disagrees with me, they're in on it. And it's like, okay, but what if it doesn't though? What if like 5 years goes by and it doesn't happen? Because I don't
shout out to Whitney Webb, because she's one of those folks, it seems like.
She does great, but here's the thing. Yeah, she does great reporting, and she points out a lot of things where it's like, I appreciate her reporting. I think she's just spot on. But yeah, I mean, everybody's entitled to their opinion and perspective. I think as long as they're somewhat respectful about it. But I guess I'm not fearing that exact moment, because as bad as things could be and as good as it, like, I think it could be a lot worse. We saw what happened during COVID, and you can see what's happening in other countries. I don't want to get on too big of a tangent, but say like with immigration and like gangs coming in, and I'm not saying it was that bad yet. You see what's happening in other countries, and it's so bad where it's like
France, UK, Spain, it's rough.
And even other countries where it's even worse, where like they've just completely lost. Like, I like Mexico to some extent, but like, the cartels basically like run it, and I don't know what the government's really doing. So it's like that issue is an interesting one, because like Elon was pointing out, even on Joe Rogan, where it's like they're pushing legal migration in swing states. And he's like, if Trump doesn't win this election, he was like, we're never winning another election ever again. It's a one state party forever. So I just think there's like 7 different games being played, like not to go cute with it, but it's like there is like 7 games. And sometimes people are like, no, it's this one. This is happening. This is it. I'm like, I don't fear that. I'm aware of it, but I'm not afraid of it.
Well, I mean, even if you are concerned about it, it doesn't mean that it's inevitability. And I think that to talk about it is fine. What I find fascinating about those folks is that they're almost always the ones that say, no, I don't vote. I would never vote. And I'm like, wait, so you think we're headed towards this inescapable technocratic panopticon, and you don't even want to have any say on like which leader might be leading us there faster? Like, assuming that it's an inevitability, you still don't want to go with the guy that you think is less in that vein. I guess their argument would be, no, they're both exactly the same. They're both exactly in that vein. I'm like, right. I just don't buy that. And I think that the other thing is, and I used to probably have more of their perspective, but after I spent so much time around these people, like, I know Vivek Ramaswamy pretty well. I don't know Donald Trump Jr. very well, but I spent and talked to him for an hour. Like, if you talk one-on-one with someone for an hour, you get a feel for who they are. Like, it's just, you do. It doesn't mean that your feel is correct, but the feel I got from Donald Trump Jr. was like, this guy would be like a buddy of mine. Like, I would not hate this guy. He is not some un-American danger who's trying to feed me over the CCP or put me into Elon Musk's technocratic cage. So that's the vibe I get. So it's hard for me to buy into this narrative that, okay, you think his father is really just trying, he's actually the head fake, and he's going to be the one that brings about World War III, and you're a fool, you're an idiot. Like, I don't know, man. I find that hard to believe. I think he's probably just, not a very ideological guy who gets led astray a lot, but overall probably isn't as bad as Kamala Harris. That's my 2 cents.
I like Don Jr. a lot. Here's what I'll say. This 4 years will really tell the tale, because with Trump,
true,
it seemed like he was crushing for 3 years, but then with the COVID thing, like, that theory seems a lot more plausible, because it's like 3 great years and then the economy blows up and it's like the craziest thing in modern history. Okay. This 4 years, I don't believe that he's going to do something that bad again. And I'm not making excuses for him like a lot of his supporters. I'm just saying, like, I'm going with the theory that that's not going to happen again. If it does happen again and something just as bad as that happens, me and Clint are wrong, and it literally doesn't matter. And they're literally going to push us there.
Yep.
This next 4 years will really tell that.
But why would someone root against us in this pathway? Like, do you want to be right so bad that you want Donald Trump to actually have another lockdown or to start a world war or something crazy? Like, I find it fascinating that a lot of people, I think, are so just doomer pilled that they would prefer to see Donald Trump fail just so that they could say, told you. And I'm like, man, that's
I definitely,
wow.
Yeah. And I don't want to shame people that do good reporting, because like there is a such thing as good reporting that's necessary. But I think you're right. There absolutely are people that are 100% on that, where it's like they don't even want to acknowledge that reality. Where I'm a little like weird with it too when it comes to like mindset. I'm hypersensitive. So for me, like, I know I'm not Donald Trump. I'm not connected to this level, but everything I've ever gotten in my life, like the success I've gotten, the people that I've met, it's all through what I built for myself, right? And I didn't really have family connections. I didn't have help. Like, I didn't have a budget. I don't have a corporation, but I see how great this country is despite all odds. You know, during COVID, it was one of the craziest parts of my life, but because no one seemed to know how to do the reporting, I ended up being able to compete with major media news. And once they realized, they took away a lot of my stuff, but it's like, still, that's a cool moment. And then I still rallied from it, et cetera. So like, I don't live in this reality where I'm this powerless victim that's going to get computer chipped in my head. Like, I believe in myself when that moment comes to say no, just like when they were trying to stick a test or a vaccine, I said no. So it's like, I get where they're coming from, and it's a possibility in my head, but I'm not going to spend 100% of my time thinking it's going to happen and almost like being like, just to say I told you so, because I don't think I'm powerless. And it's like the people that are above me, like, you know, say like a Gavin Newsom, like, I don't envy what he has. Like, he has a different type of power. I think there's a power in authenticity. I think there's a power in spirit. There's a power in social media and the people you can connect with. And I'd rather hang out with these people than donors and elites, because that would creep me out. And like, these people feel uncomfortable because they know they're lying all the time. So it's like, I live in a whole different reality than the people that are always so negative about everything, where it's like, I don't think I'm a powerless victim who's going to get rounded up into a camp and computer chip to my head. Because if I really thought that way, I'd leave. And it's the same with certain anarchists where they're like, I don't consent at all to the U.S. government. Then go to a different country. Google the one that has the smallest government in the world and go there, and then complain to voters in Zimbabwe or something. You won't do it. You'll sit in America and complain to American voters because, you know, you don't consent, but at any point you could leave, you know, and if you're really that scared of what's coming, why not leave? I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of this stuff. I don't know.
In fairness, I think many of those types, they move to the state with the smallest government. At least that's what I did. You know, I practiced what I preached. I moved from California to Florida. You know, Florida is not like I don't know if it's the smallest government in the country, but it's definitely smaller than California. That's for fucking sure. And I think a lot of libertarians, they moved to New Hampshire. Some of them, they peace out all the way to El Salvador. Some of them are probably moving to Argentina. So that's there are some people that do that, but I think by and large, most don't. Most just stay at home and they bitch and complain on the internet, and then they, you know, if Trump doesn't deliver anything, they get to say, I told you so. Here's the reality. I don't expect Trump to deliver much. I like, the main reason that I'm not a fucking Republican in the first place is, well, one, there's some ideological differences, but two, it's because these people don't deliver shit. When I debated Vivek Ramaswamy at the National Convention, that was my main argument against him, and he fucking agreed with me. He's like, you're right. We campaign as if we're Ron Paul, and then we govern like we're John McCain. And I'm sick of it too. And it's like, yeah, thank you. Fucking finally. And it's like every GOP person that I know, every MAGA person I know at least, feels the same way. So I just would rather not have an antagonistic relationship with the MAGA base, like the average voter out there. I think that they see the world fairly similarly to how I do. So I just don't, I see no reason to be antagonistic towards them. And, you know, that earns me a lot of ire from my people, but you know, it is what it is.
Dude, I saw some people, the same people that are getting mad at me, they were getting mad at Ron Paul and Thomas Massie, because Thomas Massie was happy Trump won, and Ron Paul was happy that, like, for the first time in 20 years, people actually gave a shit about him. Like, you know, Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy, and people were like, how dare Ron Paul get happy that Vivek talked to him? And I'm like, you're going to get mad at Ron Paul because Vivek's trying to include him in a conversation? Like, how fucked up of a person are you to get mad at like an 89-year-old fucking legend because Vivek talked to him? And I want to say this real quick, and I want to get your response, because with Vivek, it's like, you know, I don't want people to think I like hate the guy and I'm this big like hardline critic on everything just because I'm mad. It's like, I always try to be graceful in my approach, where like I always said, you know, I think Vivek is super smart, super talented. I think he's going to be successful regardless of my opinion, because I see how he's maneuvering and I know he's going to be successful. And I want him to get a position, because I didn't want him to be the president personally, but I want to see what he can do. The Doge thing will be interesting.
Me too.
On that note, though, it's like, I'm not this type of person. Like, say he was your best friend. I'm not going to be like, Clint, you can't be like the people that are like, Ron Paul's talking to him. It's like, bro, what is this, high school? You get to determine who gets to talk to who. But with Vivek, and I know some people are interested because like Elon has a lot of like government contracts with SpaceX and stuff. You know, Vivek came from the pharmaceutical industry, and I know he's been talking about like deregulation to some extent there. And I'm just interested. I mean, I love the fact that they're bringing Ron Paul into the conversation. I think that's beyond cool. I guess just with them too, it's like I wish for the best. I think that they say a lot of the right things and they seem super transparent. At bare minimum, they seem like the two most transparent people out there. But it's like I'm going to keep my eyes peeled too, because it's like if he starts shredding a bunch of like regulations that I don't think are really that bad when it comes to like drugs, because I know his one company, you know, it didn't get the FDA approval, I think, and the stock kind of like collapsed. So he's like, this is my number one goal with FDA. And I'm like, well, that's not RFK's top 5 goals. But I do get what he's saying though, because there are certain like stem cell therapy where like athletes have to fly to Mexico or Germany to get it because you can't get the best stuff in America. So I get where he's going. I guess my point is like, even though I think I gave the hardest interview to Vivek and got in a lot of trouble for it. It
was rough sauce, dude. I loved it though.
No, but in general, it's like I don't hate the guy, and my intentions are pure. I'm just I can go hard, but also wish for the best, but just keep my eye on it. Like, you know, with him, like I'm gonna keep my eye on it, but I'm never gonna like yell at him for talking to Ron Paul. Like that's awesome. Like why are people mad at that? I don't understand.
Do you not want him to be like when Donald Trump Jr. is quote tweeting Dave Smith, my good friend, like. Right. Is that not a positive? Like, are you going to really like, what the fuck?
Right.
So I totally agree. And just for the record, even though I spent a good amount of time with Vivek, I don't know him. Like, I don't know him, the totality of his being. I know he's got an incredible capacity to talk like me. Does that mean he actually shares my beliefs? Like, I feel the same way. Yeah, exactly. I feel the same way about RFK Jr. though. Like, he was a gun grabbing climate change lunatic not that long ago. So now, granted, he's not going to be responsible for most of those things, so we won't even really be able to tell if he changed his opinions on those issues. But with Vivek, like we're going to be able to tell a lot if he actually gets in there and he shreds a whole bunch of like things that help the economy bloom and blossom, and he's like basically our Indian American Javier Milei. Well, then he's kind of walking the walk at that point. We'll see. And for me, I'm grateful.
I think he's really transparent too. So it's like if people got to understand, like when Kamala's in office, no one cares what you say. It doesn't matter. No one's listening. There's no chance of changing everything. You might as well just log off the internet or do journal. Like with Vivek, he's very transparent and he tries to be. Elon, like, you know, I'm sure you feel the same, but I don't go off of just what he says, even though he was one of the few people pushing back against COVID in May. And I appreciated that. But like what he's done with the network, and I've seen what it's done to other social media companies, like half the people that hate him on Twitter are just tweeting every day. Like I'm being shadow banned. I'm like, I see your tweets every day. You're not being shadow banned. These people don't understand. It's like if I tweet 20 times a day, they're not all going to get the same numbers. It's a numbers game, and some things take off and some things don't. They're like, but it doesn't, like I'll get 500,000 views on Instagram and like 20,000 views on Facebook. It's not necessarily shadow banning, but it's just algorithmic changes, and some things happen that way. But it's just so funny where it's like he brought you back onto Twitter. You know what I'm saying? I could see all of your posts. It's just people think they deserve everything, where it's like if I tweet 50 times a day, I've gotten results for the last 7 years, so I don't care anymore. But it's also like if it gets 5 million views or it gets 5,000 views, like I don't deserve, like, you know, it's like every tweet, like some people log onto social media and they literally think like I'm going to tweet 20 things and everything I say so great that they should all get 500,000 impressions. And if they don't, I'm being shadow banned. It's like, what type of egotistical dickhead are you that thinks that's how the algorithm works?
It's a bit of an entitlement mentality, but look, I will be honest. I would like it if just my tweets would be shown to all of the people that follow me. Cause like you have more followers than I do, but I have 205,000 followers. There is never a time where I should only have 3 or 4 or 5,000 impressions on a tweet. That seems kind of crazy low. But at the same time, I go viral a lot. I'm very appreciative. The marketing arm that I have from this is unbelievable. It's like nothing I ever imagined I could have possibly achieved or attained. So I'm not complaining. And I think that Elon, even if you like, the real reason that they're bitching on Twitter or X is because it's still the best. Like if you go anywhere else, the only improvements that you've seen over the past 3 years are because they have to compete with X, because he basically just threw the gates wide open, allowed people to start talking again. And these other platforms were fucking hemorrhaging users because so many people had been banned from Facebook and Instagram and this platform and everywhere else that they're like, all right, well, we better fucking chill out. Like we're going to lose our lunch. So, you know, whether or not he ends up putting a brain chip in me against my will, he still has helped a lot when it comes to the free speech issue, for sure.
I don't know if I like it as much as how it used to be, like you're saying, but I guess I just live in like what it is. And I noticed this on Instagram as well. I have a lot of followers, but if you look at the analytics, it'll be like 50% of the views are from my following, 50% are not. But then your content, when it goes viral, is in other people's feed. I'm just going to explain why this happens, because I think I understand from a business perspective. Sure. Facebook, Twitter, TikTok as well, everything. They make money as long as people are there, because the longer you stay on there, the more ads you're going to see, and the more they can, pay people and run the ads or whatever, get money from it. So they want to keep you on there. If your feed is people that you follow, they've done the analytics like to such an extreme level, probably artificial intelligence, just data, everything, to the point where it's like, all right, him seeing all of his followers is going to be way more boring than if we can cherry pick. When you scroll on Twitter, you're going to see 30 of the posts that they've determined that you're going to like the most, you're going to share the most. And here's the weird part. I leave and I come back. Sometimes if I'm just trying to find like something to screenshot and then post on Facebook to like share the news on Facebook, the perfect couple things are right at the top of my feed, because they already know that that's kind of what I want to see, and they have patterns on me. So it makes the feed better in some ways, but then the followers also don't see it. So it's like, it's a give and a take. On Facebook, I think they really screw me, where like people don't see my videos that much anymore, but I can reach millions of people just posting memes a day, because I guess they've determined that that's better for them. Like they're not really as much of a video.
Your memes anymore. Are harmless, but your words are dangerous.
It could be that, but I just think they tried to go hard into the videos, but then they kind of like lost what made them themselves. And even like Facebook Marketplace, I think that's done really well for them recently. So they're trying to like be their own thing again. But that's why it happens. And I guess, certain parts of it bother me to some extent. But as somebody that's seen everything, I think that YouTube is the most rigged of all. And I think that X, even Instagram now, kind of just lets it fly a little bit. So the name of the game is just like trying to figure out what works. And like you said, like some of yours will get 5,000, but you really, especially you'll go viral like every day, because one of your tweets will catch on. And once it hits the system, it just flies, So I feel like I do social media.
That's why I don't complain about it.
A side biz too, just because I like it and I can get out of politics. But I kind of like studying all the stuff. And it's interesting where it's like, it's like an email list or something. It's like, I wish everybody could see this, because then I'd be doing a lot better, but it's just not kind of how it works now. But I get why it works the way it is. And in some ways I think it's good, but it'll change eventually. Like everything always changes to something else. That's just what's happening. They want your top 10 tweets that you see to be the most interesting things to you, and the most like, get your response attention.
It's a curated feed, man. They're trying to maximize your attention and your interest, and to keep you there and sharing and talking and communicating. And I get it. It's just, I'm old enough that I was actually like an early days Facebook user. I haven't been on Facebook in, I don't even know, like 10 years or something crazy, but I was an early days user where the algo didn't exist, and like everything you posted would just be the next thing that fucking everyone saw. And like the good old days, and the world, that world ain't coming back. Like it's just obvious. Yeah. Every single platform does this. So I do feel bad though for those that are like, well, I was one of them, because not that long ago I was trying to start out, and it's a fucking nightmare. It is so hard to get that snowball rolling. Like if you're starting from zero, like it took me 4 years to go from 0 to 100,000 followers. It took me 10 months to go from 100,000 to 200,000 followers. Like it's crazy how fast it grows once you get to where we're at, versus like just that starting ramp is just, oh man, it's like I'm forgetting the name of the. Who's the guy that pushed it up the hill just every day?
I'm not sure.
It'll come to me, anyways.
Instagram used to be just like who posted it when, but the thing is, like, you'd go through your feed and you'd be like, all right, I've seen everything for the day, but they can't have you do that. So it is kind of like predatory in the sense of they're like, keep scrolling. So it's like, I'm kind of ready for the next algorithm, because this one is a little obnoxious to some extent, like that they just have to keep us going over and over. But yeah, I would say
Sisyphus is who it is. Sorry.
I would say that this era, even there's more competition, so it might be harder to stand out because there's like way more people doing it than used to. But at the same time, it's like YouTube, you can go viral easier with no followers now than you could have before. Like
That's
back
true.
in the day, you needed someone big to share it. Like you literally needed that. Now, if it's good enough, it could just fly. Or if you piss somebody off enough and they want to argue with you.
Every day I'll see a tweet that has 250,000 likes, and I'll click the profile because it's someone I've never seen before, and they'll have like 1,500 followers. You know, like they are trying to make it possible for the smallest accounts to just have an explosive day. And I think that's good. Like, because sometimes the smaller accounts put out really fucking great stuff. It's usually a joke, but I think like they're fine tuning it. It's an evolving science, and overall, I'm just amazed that like people that are genuinely interested in the truth, like truly independent commentators like you and I, are able to reach the audiences that we're able to reach. Like, I've got episodes that do better than fucking CNN sometimes, some nights, you know, like it's crazy what we're able to accomplish. I've been on Timcast 10 times, and every single one of those episodes does more than what most corporate news shows do. So it's just an amazing time to be able to do this stuff. And I think people kind of lose sight of that it used to be just fucking Cronkite and a handful of, you know, dudes in suits that were spitting CIA lies to you. And now you got, you know, maybe you don't like Tim Pool, whatever, but like you've got 50 people out there that you can pick from that are genuinely independent, that are trying to deliver you the truth. That's something we've never had before.
Right. And I'm very like, I don't know if I'd call it meta, but it's like, what do you want? Because like when people talk to me sometimes about business, they're like, you should do this, you should do that. Like they're just assuming I want all these things that they want. But it's like, I've been in this game so long. It's like, I'm not like desiring, or like, I'm not trying to be anywhere else than I am right now. So with social media, it's one of those things where if you're like, your energy is what you can control. So I'm not trying to talk to, because like some people, they do this, that. But if you put it out there and it's truly good, and especially like with the 6 degrees of separation, everybody's reading the same stuff. Like I know for sure people that got mad at me last week and called me a sellout or whatever, they're sharing stuff that news that I kind of created. Like I know, because I know what news articles I screenshot, and I know I was first at that. It's not a competition. I don't even care. I want everybody to share it, and they don't need to give me credit. But it's like they're hating on me, yet they're regurgitating what they don't even know I put out into the world, and then everybody's putting out. So it's like, if you're a part of this conversation, focus on just being like chill, cool, and great at what you do, and people will like it. Like everybody's not bad. There are bad people out there, but like I don't live in this world where I hate, like you said, like I like Don Jr. I like different people. Like I like Elon. I'm not going to let him put a chip in my head, but I think he's funny. Like he's an interesting character. So it's like, you kind of can only get what you put out in this world. And I think people are they don't realize it, but they're putting out so much negativity that then they're like, why is my stuff not getting shared? Because your entire following is people that are angry as you. You're not going to be connecting with people that don't live in that reality. Like say something like, I didn't get that many views. What you said is not that interesting. Try to say something more interesting, or like try it 20 times, have the discipline. Like it doesn't know, I don't get what I want every single time. Like I just did music video. I think it was the best song I ever did. I'm detached from the results. Like if it's as good as I think it is, then it'll get there eventually, and people will respect it in 5 years. But I'm not like, everybody wants everything so bad. It's like, you know, it's like you get what you get. Just keep going and focus on what you're doing, because it's a great time. We're all connected. People will like you if you're likable. But if you're a piece of shit and you're not that smart, people won't like you, and it's you.
That's absolutely true. A good example of what you're talking about. Like I was the first person who dredged up the Pam Bondi sitting with Donald Trump Jr. Interview about red flag laws. And I've seen it shared by fucking huge accounts like the next 72 hours after I posted it. And a lot of them are not crediting me. They've downloaded it and they've cut it up and they're doing it on their own. And I don't care. It's not my content. I didn't fucking record the interview myself. I was just the first person that when I heard her name, I didn't know much about her. So I looked it up, and that was the first video I found. And I was like, oh, she's a gun grabbing censorship machine. That's not a great, fit for AG. Jesus Christ, this is terrible. But the point is, I'm not in it for the credit. I don't want her to be the AG. So if I'm the first person that puts that video out there, and then these enormous accounts, Hodge Twins or whoever else picks it up and runs with it, fucking great. Maybe it ends up that she doesn't end up being the AG, and then we've changed the world just through our little endeavors on the internet. So
yeah, and I got people that have always been like, I would say, loyal followers, and like just people that I like, that have always done their own thing, but just never been disrespectful to me. Like this guy today with Julius, like he's always been a supporter and he does good work on his own. He'll post something in the comments and like, if it's good, I'll see it. You know what I'm saying? And I'm giving him credit now because it's like, I'm just maneuvering sometimes. Like people will take stuff. I don't care. You know, like I said, I don't need credit for a screenshot of a Fox News article, but if I was the first one, it's just kind of cool. It's like, I'm doing what I want and getting results. And that's like the taking the ego detached from it, where it's like, I need this, I need that, you need that. It's like, we're all crushing, like, and we all work off each other. So I think the people, that's the thing about I get the non-consent and the voting stuff. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but it's just like, you really want to argue about this for 3 years with me? Like, we're all moving and doing things and affecting the zeitgeist of like reality. And like, you just want to argue about something that I just don't find that interesting. I understand it on an individual level. I get it, but it's like, I just don't want to talk about, I don't want to talk about anything in a loop, like for 3 years, let alone that. Me neither, literally no topic do I want to do that for.
I mean, that like the name of my show is Liberty Lockdown, but if I were to talk about the lockdowns every day, even 4 years later, I would have lost my fucking mind. It'd be brutal, and no one should listen to me, and they wouldn't. So I think like you have to have the flexibility to evolve with the times and to extrapolate the lessons that we take away from the injustice that was the lockdowns, and then push that into the future. Like what can we do to avoid this shit moving forward? And look, I'm the first to admit Donald Trump fucked up massively in that year, massively. And really he fucked up before that because, as you know, he could have had RFK in there and he didn't. He had Azar in there and we ended up probably locking down as a consequence of that. So his first presidency was not perfect. His second presidency will not be perfect, but I think it gives us the greatest opportunity for positives when we were dealing with almost exclusively negatives from the current establishment. And ultimately, if we don't avoid World War III, none of this shit matters. So that's my primary concern. I'm good friends with Lynn Albrecht, Ross Ulbricht's mother, and it would just thrill me to no end to see her son freed, and I think that'll still happen. So, you know, if he can avoid World War III, if he can free Lynn's son, to me, that'll make it all worthwhile. If he doesn't do those things, well, then I guess nothing matters because nukes are flying. So, what's your prognosis for the next couple of years, and we'll get out of here?
Whether people want to admit it or not, Donald Trump's 2024-2025 administration is going to be the most accessible and the most transparent administration of all time. There's never been anything like this with social media, with the fact that he listens. Like I believe some choices where they come out in the news, everybody hates on it so bad, he gets embarrassed. Someone comes out, he's not picking them. Maybe he was never going to pick them, or maybe he hears everybody and just doesn't want to look like an idiot, you know, and listen. So even if you don't like anything about him or whoever, this is 1,000 times more accessible than Kamala. Kamala, there is no access. They have their ideas. Everything they do is to distract you from what they're doing, because if anyone ever figures out what they're really doing, no one would like them or vote for them. So there is no transparency. There's no accessibility. Zero.
There's no influence.
None. This is the most accessible and transparent administration of all time. It's not going to be perfect, but like use your voice and use your energy, if you're going to be in this at all, to try to guide these things in the right direction, because I promise you, not everybody, and they're not always going to agree, but people are listening. People are accessible and people are more transparent, where you're going to know what they're doing to some extent, more than you understand what the other side's doing. So I'm excited about that. And it's just back to work. Like there's a lane for everybody. And that's my final statement.
That's my closing argument, sir. Thank you so much, brother, for coming on. It has been too long. I know you took a break. Are you back at it full time now, or are you going to just be in and out?
Yeah, no, I'm full time, and I'm moving to a no income tax state, and I'm going to just get build a studio, take things more seriously, and try to just get some help, because I was just getting so burned out doing it by myself. So I'm trying to. I have a business model, and I'm visualizing it, and I'm going to do it. I just need more people. So the break was great. I was just getting my health in order, figuring out what was going on, and just I was doing too much. So I'm back. I'm here, but I'm trying to work smart, not not just like super hard arguing with people on Twitter. I gotta stop arguing with people on Twitter. I think that's probably the most net negative part of anything I do.
I stopped doing that a while ago, but I still read them, and even that is taxing. So I got to try and read them less too. But yeah, this is my first episode in 10 days. For those that are upset that I didn't put out more content, just understand I was basically just grinding so hard because I was doing the show with Luke. I was doing my comedy show. I was doing Liberty Lockdown. I was putting out 10, 11 hours of content every week that was live, and I was doing that for over a year. I was burnt out. I was just totally burnt out, and then the election happened. I did a post-election show, and I was like, I just need to fucking like unplug it for a little bit, and I feel like I got the spark back. So hopefully I won't have to put a 10-day gap between this one and the next one. But thank you guys so much for being loyal listeners, viewers, however you're consuming this. If you could hit the like button, leave a comment down below if we got anything wrong, and share it around, and subscribe to this channel as well as Anomalies, which I will put in the description. Thank you guys. See you soon. Peace.
Appreciate you.
Before I get out of here, I want to remind you guys that there is an issue with the RSS feed. So if you are a regular listener or you're friends with regular listeners and they are not getting the latest episodes, please make sure you double check your subscription. I'm not sure which app it is that screwed it up, but we're down like 25% of the normal listeners. So it's weird. It's just a weird glitch. I'm still trying to figure it out. But in the meantime, let people know. Still putting out new episodes. Yes, I did take a little time off, but I'm back at it, obviously. And I want to make sure you guys, if you're avid listeners, that you don't miss out on the new episodes. So let people know, spread the word around. That's the easiest way to help grow the show, is to just tell them, hey, check out Liberty Lockdown. Someone who's actually trying to tell you the truth. I know. What a novel idea. Also, if you want to support the show, easiest way to do so is to subscribe on my locals, which is libertylockdown.locals.com, or subscribe to my X. It's at LibertyLockPod. I'll follow you back over there. Last but not least, if you want to just not pay me anything and support the show via algorithmic help, you can comment down below. You can hit the like button. You can subscribe. You can share it around. Or probably the best way, honestly, is to leave a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts so that it bumps up in the algorithm. Like if you search for Part of the Problem with Dave Smith, or if you search for the Liberty Report with Ron Paul, or Tom Woods Show, or a bunch of other shows, Malice, my show pops up in the recommended beneath theirs. And that's all because of you guys, because they know that people that listen to them listen to me, and therefore if there's other people that are listening to those shows, they probably would enjoy this one. So that's the easiest way to do it. Leave 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Appreciate you guys as always. I hope you have a great Thanksgiving. I'll be back in a couple days with a new episode breaking down all of the drama with Russia and Ukraine. Oh God, I've been struggling to wrap my head around how to talk about this without just sounding like a doomer. I think I found a way, and I think it'll be educational and interesting. So stay tuned for that. Other than that, enjoy Thanksgiving, and I'll catch you on the flip side. Peace.
Welcome to Liberty Lockdown. Please scan your barcode. Your liberty ain't gone, but yeah, it's on hold. Where did it come from and where did it go?